What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I break down what's happening with the economic calendar moving into tomorrow. And you should be watching from the charts as well. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on invested cash. The offer ends in just about 8 days from now. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with this market. So, as far as SPY is going, I want to mention that so far we're making higher lows and we're doing a good job at holding up. However, we have not been able to break past this resistance between this 568 to 570 range. If we do so, we're going to be looking for 575 as our target. If we can't do that, we're looking for a move back down here. So I'm going to be talking about some key levels soon and break down what's happening with these charts. But I first want to talk about some geopolitics and then also what's happening with the news. So when it comes to President Trump, I want to mention that he did make a very important announcement on Friday about his tariffs. When asked about whether or not there's going to be exceptions or even exemptions from certain ones, he mentioned that actually he doesn't really support exemptions. He doesn't want to be like way too lenient, but simultaneously he's going to be willing to be flexible. So that's kind of like the way he put it. He's not going to be way too lenient and way too strict. He wants to be flexible with his reciprocal tariffs, and he believes that's going to be very, very big for the US. Now, President Trump is not really commenting too much about tariffs right now, at least with specific details. For example, he's not saying he wants to do 200% tariffs on this country or 50% on another country. Instead, he's just hyping up April 2nd, saying it's going to be a very, very important day for the US. So this makes me suspect that there's going to be this leeway for the markets. The market has some room to try to like bounce a little bit. It's going to be a little bit less scared. If anything, there's going to be less fear. There's going to be more calmness, at least for the markets. And then once we get to that April 2nd date, when he starts announcing his reciprocal tariffs, if we see more fears come out about the recession, more talk about Donald Trump, and whatever all of this may lead to, it may cause more volatility for the markets, even more downside by then. So I hope that's as clear as possible. That things get very complicated by April 2nd. Approaching that date, we may have some free time for the markets. The market may try to kind of like uptrend a bit, hold supports at least for now. To add on to that, I just want to say that, and when it comes to other geopolitical news, we're going to be listening to see if there's any kind of ceasefire deal between Russia and Ukraine. There's still very, very intense negotiations going on as Russia's demanding a lot of things. And, obviously it also depends on Ukraine's side. Will they agree to lots of these demands? And we'll see where they come to a consensus if that ends up happening or not. If we get any sort of like ceasefire news, either like on I would say this coming week or next week, that could still cause a big move in the markets. There's always that possibility to be ready for it. And then the last thing is that when it comes to the EU, they announced they wanted to kind of delay their tariffs a bit, at least on the US. So that was some good news as well. So a lot of the news coming out has been a little bit more positive. You guys could see how this is affecting the markets, right? Instead of just dumping and dumping and dumping like crazy when President Trump started announcing his tariffs, right? Instead of just dumping, the market is starting to see some green, and you guys can see we're attempting to make higher lows right here, which is a decent sign. Of course, we still have to break resistance, but you guys can see how this is affecting the markets, how important it is for us to be paying attention to politics. Now, when it comes to other pieces of news, tomorrow is going to be Monday, March 24th, 2025. At 9:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the main pieces of data. We have the S&P Global Composite Manufacturing and Services PMI reports. Then we also have our bill auctions at 11:30. We'll see what all of that leads to. The market is currently extremely fearful. That's making up the majority of sentiment. Momentum is also at extreme fear, and we'll have to see how this changes. The put to call option ratio is dipping a bit, so we're seeing a little bit less fear than before. So just keep that in mind. And then we also have the VIX dipping right here, so we're looking for the 50 daily moving average just to see if that holds or not. So keep all of that in mind, especially as time goes on. That's going to be very important for all of us. The last thing I want to mention is that we have our earnings. So we have GameStop, Dollar Tree chewing a lot of these retail earnings coming out, even like Lululemon. All of this may lead to some volatility for these specific stocks, but it shouldn't affect the market way too much. There's nothing way too significant like an Nvidia earnings or like an Apple earnings. There's nothing like that right now. Just keep that in mind. Anyways, the earnings period will start again in a couple of weeks once we have big tech earnings again once this quarter ends. But until then, there's a little bit of calmness that's coming out, and I think this gives the market somewhat potential to try to push higher. Now, here's the thing about SPY, okay? You don't want to look at this as, are we super bullish? Are we super bearish? It has more to do with how well are we breaking above our levels. And can we continue to push even more? So that's going to be very important. So please keep that in mind. So as far as SPY goes, if we could break back above 568, we're looking for an attempt to get closer to 575. If we end up losing support right here around this 558 area, we're going to be looking for 555. Break that, then I'm going to turn really bearish. It's going to be a bad sign. So lose 558, it's a not so good sign. Lose 555, we're very bearish. Break 568, we're more bullish, and we're looking for 575 as our target. All right, so I hope that's as clear as possible. Right, you want to see us get back above our 50 EMA, this 568 area, to be bullish. If not, if we form like a head and shoulders here and reject, if we can't hold 555-ish, then we're going to be looking for the next leg down. So it all depends on these levels. So what do I think is going to happen? That's what a lot of people are always wanting to know. I want to say this, okay? So far, what is good for the markets is the fact that we're trying to form an accumulation. And as of right now, we're trying to make higher lows, okay? We basically have equal lows right here, but this is a higher low compared to this low. So we're forming a higher base compared to before, right? The floor went up for the markets. This would tell me that going into tomorrow, I do anticipate some kind of push right up here towards our 50 EMA. I think SPY is going to be testing 568. If it fails, if we can't hold above that, there could be an initial sell-off from there, but then we may attempt to hold this trend line. And this could be kind of like a fake head and shoulders to kind of fake people out. They might try to continue to uptrend this for 575. I find that to be very, very probable. So I think there's a good chance we try to go higher. So watch and see if we could hold this yellow trend line. As long as this trend line holds, we're bullish. This is going to try to continue to make higher lows and eventually try to push higher. One may also argue the possibility of a bullish wedge, right? This is kind of like a wedge like this, making higher lows like this, and then we eventually break out for a bullish wedge. We have this pattern on SPY, which tends to favor upside. So overall, considering that the 4 hour is looking bullish, the daily chart is also looking a little bit more bullish as we have a PPO crossover here. We're seeing more volume coming in, and we're starting to see a little bit more of a bullish candlestick. 568 is a very key level. If we close above that, we're looking a lot more bullish on the daily, but we need to see that for confirmation. So obviously, watch for confirmation, see if you can break and hold above 568. But in my personal opinion, the chart is favoring upside as we're attempting to make higher lows. And so far, as long as we don't lose this trend line, we're favoring that we want to go up to 568, eventually 570, then 575 to fill this gap up here. So I'm favoring the upwards direction, right? Whether we form these higher lows and eventually push for that 575 targets, or if we continue to hold above the 568 area. So keep that in mind. 575 is going to be a good target. I do think we look bullish on SPY. For the QQQ, it's the same setup. Almost, it's very, very identical. If anything, we also have a very, very nice range, but this is like a little bit more range bound than SPY, despite the fact that the setup is similar. If we break and hold above 485, excuse me, we're looking for essentially 492 as our target. We're going to be testing this high up here if we break and hold above 485. If we lose 474, if we can't hold that, I think we dip back down to fill this gap around 470, if not go lower. In my personal opinion, the most likely case is this. We're forming a bullish wedge. So we're like trying to make this wedge like this. And then if we break and hold above 485, we're looking for an attempt for 492. My gut tells me that's what's going to likely happen. So we'll see if 485 holds as we're making higher lows, and we'll see if we break that to go up to about that 492 target. Also, what I like about this is the fact that this kind of resembles an inverse head and shoulders, a nice accumulation. We technically have the same thing on SPY going on. This kind of resembles an inverse head and shoulders, not as clean looking as other charts though. But for the QQQ, it's kind of like we have this. This is kind of like a left shoulder here. This head is like a double bottom. And then we could be attempting to form it like a right shoulder right here. If we can continue to make higher lows, then we're looking for basically 492 as our target like that. So honestly, as long as we don't lose this support, we're looking like we're making higher lows. And we want to be going for that 485 plus target to eventually go up to 492. For the Russell 2000, we have a left shoulder. We have a potential head. And then we have like a right shoulder. So if we manage to break and hold above 208, we're looking for an attempt to go up to about that the 210s up here. If we end up losing 200, we could be dumping back down towards these lows again. My gut tells me this is resembling an accumulation, kind of like an inverse head and shoulders. If we break past 208, we're looking for an attempt for the 210s. For ES, looks a little bit more bullish. We're trying to respect an uptrend. You guys can see how we have this channel up here. Also, I see a potential inverse head and shoulders. There's no sign of this being invalidated yet, so this setup is more bullish. Now, if we hypothetically end up losing 56.50, there's a bad piece of news, if something happens, I will be a little bit more concerned. If 5650 fails us, we could be retesting these lows again. It's going to be a bad sign. But as long as we're above it, we're actually well above it right now. Even as we're trading right now, I think that we're still doing a good job. So I think what's going to happen is this to ES. Basically, what I think is going to happen is we respect an uptrend like this, we push like this. We do have a gap over here, so maybe we come down a bit, but then we should continue to push for the 5800s like this to continue this uptrend. This also aligns with the inverse head and shoulders right here and the accumulation pattern. So watch and see, do we come down to fill this gap towards the lower 5700s? But as long as we hold this trend line, we could continue to uptrend to go for the 5800s and above. I think we're doing a fantastic job. So far, so good. For NQ, NQ is looking quite bullish. If we hold above 20,000, we're looking for an attempt to go up to 20,400. If we end up losing 19,800, we could be dipping back down to about 19,600. We're also trying to hold this support trend line. This is a good sign right here. This is kind of like a left shoulder. This is like a head, sort of. And then we're kind of forming like a double bottom for our right shoulder. So this could be looking bullish. I know it's a little bit sloppy looking, but it's very, very possible this is what's going to pan out. Now, before that happens, there could be some kind of pullback move here back down to about 19,800. And then as long as we end up holding the support, as long as we don't end up losing like 20,000 or so like that, I think there's a good chance we eventually try to reclaim 20,000. We're going to be doing a good job. So in my view, maybe I could redraw this a little bit like this to look a little bit more like a wedge. And then we're looking at this resistance technically like this, right? That's going to be around this like 20,000 area to be forming this very, very nice looking bullish wedge. This is what we could be doing on NQ. And this could be leading to some temporary upside approaching President Trump's tariffs. The market may pump approaching it. For Bitcoin, we're looking bullish as long as we don't lose 84,000. We're looking for an attempt for 86,500. If we lose 84,000, we could be dipping back down to about 83,000. As long as we make higher lows, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to 86,000. I think we're doing great. For Nvidia, we're doing a great job. We're getting very tight right now. So if Nvidia does not hold this low, and we're very close to it, if we lose 114, I'm going to be concerned for 111. We're going to be likely dipping if that ends up being the case. If we manage to hold above 120 and we break to the upside from this wedge, there's a good chance we try to push for 125. Now, what I like about this chart is the fact that it has an inverse head and shoulders. It's trying to hold support. Of course, we need some confirmation first, but nonetheless, I think we're doing a good job, and this may try to push for this target up to about that 125 target. That's going to be where our 50 EMA happens to be. For Tesla, we're looking for essentially the 250 area. If that breaks, we have 262. If we lose supports at 239-ish, that's very close to where this wedge is, then we could be dipping. Now, two things to note about Tesla. The first thing is we're trying to make higher lows. What do I mean by that? Look at the trend. We're continuing to make higher lows over and over again. This could be forming a bullish wedge, and then that could take us even higher. Number two, we have this resistance, and then it's not just the higher lows, also this bullish wedge is forming. So like I said before, this is like a bullish wedge pattern, right? This is a good pattern. This tends to favor upside. So if we hold above 250, we're going to be looking pretty good. My guts tells me we might see some like attempts to hold above 250. Maybe we come down a little bit, consolidate first before it tries to break out. As long as there's no major bad news, as long as 250 holds, we're looking bullish. And I think that Tesla's doing an absolutely fantastic job. Now, keep in mind, guys, there's a lot of news coming out for Tesla. There's news about how, we're seeing a lot of vandalism for their products. It's happening at the different showrooms. We're seeing a lot of negative sentiment about Elon Musk. A lot of it's noise, and there's been so much bad news to the point where Tesla may have priced a lot of that in. So there could be some temporary relief first before we see a bigger move down in the future. Just keep that in mind. This is just a temporary move. For Apple, we're looking pretty good. I want to see us get back above 220. If that holds, we're looking for 226. If we lose 215, we could be dipping back down to about 209. Overall, we have a double bottom-like pattern, and we're looking quite good. I do favor the upwards direction. For Netflix, we're looking bullish as long as we continue to make higher lows. I don't want to see us lose that 941 area. As long as we're above that, we're continuing to favor a push for essentially 1,000. Why do I say that? It's also because of these imbalances, right? So we got this huge dump on in Netflix. You guys can see how we have this giant gap over here. We're trying to come back up and basically fill that gap as we have a wedge. So pretty good job by Netflix. I could easily see this going to 972 to eventually 1,000. If we end up losing, for example, the 940s, we could turn back down, but I don't really favor that. I think we're still looking quite good. For MSTR, we're looking bullish. As long as we're above 303, we're looking for a move to about 325. If we end up losing 290, we could be dipping back down towards 272. But overall, it's looking a bit more bullish for the 325 area. For Celsius, we look bullish. The daily is looking quite good. Pretty good setup. It does look like it wants to go up to 35, but that depends on if it could break past the previous high over here. I want to see us break this high to go back up. I think this is favoring 35 though, nonetheless, and I think we're doing a good job. For Supermicro, we look bullish as long as we don't end up losing this trend line over here. So see this yellow trend line below. As long as that does not fail us, we're favoring that we want to continue to uptrend. We're at resistance. We're also forming like a wedge. So I was talking about this previously. So we could see a dip move to the lower 40s before it tries to break out like this. And eventually, I think this is going to be looking quite good. So just keep that in mind. For Palantir, we're looking bullish as we're trying to make higher lows. So this could be looking for an attempt for 95 and eventually the 100s. If we end up losing 86, we could be dipping back lower. But overall, we're making higher lows. And I think we're looking quite good. For Rivian, we're looking like we want to be going up to 12.06. If we end up losing 11.18, that could be dipping. And we kind of have this like range right over here. But I think there's a good chance we try to push for 12.06. And I think we favor upside. Keep in mind, before we push up there, we're at resistance over here. So we did reject many times off 11.75. So it could dip towards our EMAs first before it goes up to that target. But overall, it's still technically trying to uptrend. For SoFi, we're on an uptrend. As long as we don't end up losing 12.5, we're favoring a push up towards 13.5. So I think there's a good chance we try to uptrend like this. We kind of dip towards the trend line, just continue to uptrend for 13.5. For AMD, nice uptrend. We actually have a nice double bottom right here. As long as 103.5 does not fail us, we're favoring a move back up to about 110. So, there's a good chance we try to make a move like that. We kind of dip here, then we just continue to push for the 110s. For ARM is doing a good job right here. We're actually forming a nice accumulation. If we manage to hold above 120, we're looking for an attempt for 125. If we lose 115, we could turn back down. But overall, nice inverse head and shoulders. But I need to see us hold above 120 for confirmation. One problem with ARM is the fact that we're just range bound going back and forth. So I do think we continue to do that until we break 120 to really start pushing. Coin is looking a bit more bullish. I want to see us hold above our key support right over here. So if we get back above 194, we're looking for 200. If we end up losing 179, we could turn back down towards 175, but it still looks more bullish. Amazon, we need to see it break above 198. If that holds, we're looking for essentially 200 plus. If we lose 190, we're going to be bearish. We're in our range right now, but I do think we might test 200. We'll see if it breaks or not. It's in a range until we break 200. So watch for an attempt to test 200. We'll see how it goes. For Meta, same thing. I need to see us break 608. If that breaks, we're looking for a 620. I think we test 608, but we need confirmation with the hold above 600. And if that breaks, we go higher. If we lose 576, we could turn back down, but it still looks more bullish to me. Microsoft looks more bullish, inverse head and shoulders like pattern. I want to see us get back above 395. If that's the case, we're looking for 398 to 400. Google's looking bullish. I want to see us hold above 168. If that's the case, we're looking for an attempt to get back up towards 170. If we end up losing 162, we could turn back down, but off this inverse head and shoulders, I think 168 is a very, very fair target. GameStop needs to hold above 25.4. If that's the case, the 26s are coming. AMC, has an inverse head and shoulders. As long as we're above 3.04, we're favoring the 310s. For DJT, if we break 20.25, we're looking for an attempt for 21. If we end up losing 19.5, we could be dipping, but we have a nice attempt to make higher lows. So this could be looking for 21 plus. For the VIX, we're making lower highs right here. If we can't hold 19.61, we're looking for a dip to about the 18 to 17.8 area, which would be bullish for stocks if we continue to fail to hold support. The 10-year is looking weak. We want to see if this could break past these higher levels. It's kind of consolidating right now. I do believe there's a giant head and shoulder stone. This is going to eventually downtrend as you want to see yields drop. And then the dollar, it's trying to uptrend. We'll see how this affects the markets, if we could hold above 104 or not. For now, it's not really affecting the market as much, so I'm not too worried about it. So what is my view, guys? It's all about the levels. Watch and see which ones we break to see if we're bullish or bearish. But for now, we're trying to make higher lows, and we're trying to form a bullish wedge on both SPY and the QQQ. So for now, the setups are more bullish as we seem to have some leeway approaching the tariffs, and we'll see what the market does. For now, don't forget, guys, to be very, very open-minded. Don't forget to keep your levels at watch, because it's important for us to know what the market's looking for and to be very, very adaptive to what the market ends up doing. Watch your levels. Just know the charts look more bullish to me. I do favor upside for now, but we'll see, just to be safe. Have a good weekend, guys. Enjoy what life has to offer. I'll be back tomorrow morning before market open. Until then, have a good one and peace out.